Hey guys, so this is part 2 of swatching every eyeshadow I own by color family. This has been quite the project, but this part is going to be all of my colorful eyeshadows. Part 1 was neutrals. I will have part 1 linked down below if you missed it, but getting straight into part 2, we're going to start off with the yellows. These are all of my yellow eyeshadows. Some of these, next to the others, are looking a lot more orangey peach, but I still feel like they have enough yellow to them to be classified as yellow.
Hello, yes, okay, so I just wanted to pop in here and acknowledge that I do realize a lot of the shadows that are swatched on my arm right now do not look yellow at all. I think it's even more obvious to me as I'm watching this footage back than it was as I filmed it. But an interesting thing that I learned through filming this video is that a lot of colors will look a certain color when they're kind of isolated in their own palette. They're not sitting next to shadows of that same color family. But once they're swatched out on my arm next to other shadows that are very obviously yellow in this case, the contrast is very stark. So some of these looked very like mustard yellow in their palette, but once I swatched them next to really like banana yellow colors, they look a lot more brownish. So I hope that makes sense and kind of clarifies why some of these shadows are in this category, because I'm sitting here looking at this like, am I crazy? Like, did I really think those were yellow? But that is why. They are yellow, they just don't look quite as yellow when they're next to like bright yellow colors.
Yellow is honestly one of my favorite colors of eyeshadow. I think it's so fun and underrated. And it's often a lot more flattering than I think most people expect it to be. And I have a lot more yellows than I even realized, so this makes me happy. It makes me want to really do a lot more yellow eye looks now. But starting with the lightest and then getting into the deepest, the lightest here is Voltage from Makeupgeek. This is a duochrome. It has a white base and a beautiful yellow shift to it. One of my favorite single shadows of all time. It's been a favorite for a very long time. This is one that I've always said is similar to Voltage, but now I'm realizing it's not nearly as beautiful. This is the shade Fabulous from the Balm Nude Dude palette. Also has a white base and a goldeny yellow shift, but it's just not nearly as pigmented as Voltage, and part of that may be because that is a pretty old palette, but it's looking pretty lackluster next to Voltage. This next very pale shimmery yellow is Sun Yourself from the e.l.f. Earth and Ocean palette, and the one next to it is Gold Rush, also from Earth and Ocean. That is one of my favorite yellows. This could have been in the gold category, but I just felt like it was such a yellow gold that I wanted to put it in my yellow category. This next one is actually similar to e.l.f. Gold Rush, but it's actually, to me, not quite as pigmented. This is Honey from the Urban Decay Naked Reloaded palette. You can see it's similar to the e.l.f. one, but didn't have quite as much payoff, at least in the swatch. Still a really pretty shade, though. This is one of my favorite single shadows from ColourPop. This is one of their magnetic singles in the shade Tiki. Next we have this is like a sunflower yellow. This is the shade Marigold, or I guess it's like a marigold yellow from the Profusion Spectrum palette. Really pretty color. I've always been a little unimpressed by the formula of that palette, but I mean, the color is really, really pretty. It's just kind of powdery. Then we're getting into some of the more brownish yellows. This next one is Edge from the ABH Subculture palette. Looks a lot more brown on my skin than it does in the pan. In the pan, I felt like that looked a lot more of like a mustard yellow. This is New Wave from Subculture, looking really orange. I probably could have put that in the orange or peach category, but it honestly looks more yellow when it's not on my skin. This is Paper Tiger from ColourPop. That is a classic. Just really pretty mustard color. And then these two are also from Urban Decay Naked Honey. We have Swarm and Keeper, kind of peachy mustardy yellows. Those are all my yellow eyeshadows. This is getting me in the mood to do more yellow looks, and I've always kind of wished that I had gotten the ColourPop Honey palette, which is their yellow monochromatic palette, but now that I'm seeing this, I'm like, dang, I really did not need that palette, and I'm glad I didn't buy it, because I have plenty of beautiful yellows right here. Alright, next we have green. There is a huge mix of different types of greens here. These are a lot of them, and then I also put some on my hand because I ran out of room. But starting with the slightly cooler toned greens, we have La Playa from ColourPop. That's a soft mint. That is one of their single shadows. This is Peacock from the Profusion Spectrum palette. Nice kind of turquoise. This is the e.l.f. Liquid Glitter Shadow in the shade Mermaid Shimmy. Beautiful kind of seafoam green. This is a straight up lime green. That is the shade Lucky from the Profusion Spectrum palette. This one here is a little bit more of like a mossy green. This is Kerala from the Billie Beauty Eyes of India palette. Next to it is Jade from Urban Decay Stone Vibes. Then we have Nori by Dimension Nails. That is a loose powder shadow. These two are from e.l.f. Earth and Ocean. These are very kind of like grassy greens. We have Sahara and Spruced Up. This next one is like a deep forest green, kind of like the color of an evergreen tree, I would say. That's the shade Untamed from ABH Subculture. This is one of my favorite duochromes. This is Tea Garden by ColourPop. That's one of their magnetic singles. It has like a bronzy reddish base and like a green gold shift to it. This one here is Electric from ABH Subculture. That's like a greenish gold, really pretty. And this is Gilded from the e.l.f. New Classics palette. It's also like a greenish gold, but I decided to include it with my greens because it has, I would say it's more green than it is gold. And then flipping over here, we have some of my more olive greens, or like pukey greens. They're kind of ugly looking, but they can be really pretty on the eyes. So this first one here is Destiny from ABH Subculture. That is one that I feel like is not the most flattering on my skin tone, but I think it can be really pretty on deeper skin tones. This is Bloodstone from Urban Decay Stone Vibes. That's a really, really pretty one. It has a very red-brown base and a green-gold duochrome shift to it. This is Queen from the Urban Decay Naked Honey palette. Almost looks more bronze next to these others, but that is kind of like a golden olive green. And then these last two are from the e.l.f. Earth and Ocean palette. This is Can't Kelp It and Desert Storm. And those are all of my green eyeshadows. Of all the color categories, I think this one is the one with the most variety. So it turns out, I don't think anybody is surprised about this, it turns out that my largest color category is blue. I have a lot of blue eyeshadows. I love blue eyeshadow. It is one of my favorite colors to wear on my eyes, and yeah. So there's a bunch of them, and then I also have some on the other side of my hand. So this one is a very frosty blue. This is duochrome. It's got a white base with a blue shift. This is Polar from the Shared Planet Polar Bear palette. Really pretty as like an inner corner highlight, and I feel like it's not really showing quite as blue as it really is right now. Also, the sun just came out and it looks really cool in here now. This is Opal Aura from the Urban Decay Stone Vibes palette. Oh, there you go. I think that gives you a slightly better look at those two frosty ones. This is Baseline from ColourPop. Really pretty. I guess I would call that like a sky blue. I mean, it's kind of the color of the sky when it's blue. Almost periwinkle, but not quite, because it doesn't really have much purple to it. This one is Oasis from e.l.f. Beautiful Pastel Sky Blue. Then we have Saltwater from e.l.f. That's another very frosty pale blue. This is Bermuda from the Profusion Spectrum palette. Siren from e.l.f. Earth and Ocean. That's one of those denim blues I'm always talking about. I love that color of blue. This is from the Becca Light Gleam Dual-Ended Liquid Eyeshadow, and that is the matte blue base side. Love that side. That's pretty much the only side I use. The other side doesn't perform very well, but I love that color so much. This next one, these are some of my more aqua blues. My cats are fighting underneath the camera right now. You can hear that. This is Avalanche from the Shared Planet Polar Bear palette. I love this shade. It's definitely like a light aqua blue, but it almost has like a purpley rosy kind of undertone to it that just makes it very unique. It's beautiful. This is another really vibrant one. This is Pegasus from Makeupgeek. That's one of their foiled singles. I'm not sure if they still sell that. That is from their old formula. I still haven't tried the new Makeupgeek formula. This is Lagoon from the e.l.f. Earth and Ocean palette. Then we have two duochromes. So this is Glass Bull from ColourPop. The reason why I put it in the blue category is because the shift of it is blue, but it does have kind of a reddish base. And then this one has like a champagne rose gold kind of base, but again, a blue shift. This is Sailor from ColourPop, and that's one of their Super Shock shadows. Those are the two kind of oddballs because they are not fully blue. Then we have Mayo from the Billie Beauty Eyes of India palette. Oho from the Urban Decay Stone Vibes palette, so pretty. Drip Drip from the e.l.f. Earth and Ocean palette. Oh my gosh, that is such a pretty royal blue. I love royal blue. Blue is my favorite color. I don't know if you guys could tell, but how pretty and rich is that shade? This is Nautical from the Profusion Spectrum palette. That's very unique to my collection. I mean, it doesn't look too different from some of these others, but that is a more almost like cobalt blue. It's a little bit cooler in undertone than some of these other royal blues. This is a ColourPop single magnetic shadow in the shade Backstage. That's a matte. This is Glacier from the Shared Planet Polar Bear palette. That's a little bit more of a navy blue. Beautiful though. This is Abyss from e.l.f. Earth and Ocean. Love that color. Underwater from e.l.f. Earth and Ocean, this is more of a turquoise, and it almost looks green, especially next to some of these other blues. And Axis from the ABH Subculture palette. Also, this looks darker on my hand. In the pan, it does look like more of a teal blue, but on my hand, it's more of like a deep turquoise. So, ooh, so pretty. Those are all my blues. Oh, I love them so much. Oh my gosh, look at them. These are my babies. Alright, next category is purples, and for somebody who doesn't really like purple that much, I do have a lot of purple eyeshadows, but once again, they range a lot. So starting with these lightest ones, this is ColourPop Prowlin and Howlin. Those are two of their magnetic singles. Prowlin is a light lavender with a gold shift, and Howlin is the like matte counterpart. Then we have Raw Energy from Urban Decay Stone Vibes. That's like a very dusty silvery purple. This is Earthshine from ColourPop. I have that in the form of a single. ColourPop 143. Rain from the Profusion Spectrum palette. Celestial from the ABH Norvina palette, and Soul from Norvina. Soul is very unique. It's like a grayish periwinkle. Flirty from the Balm Nude Dude palette. That's one of my favorite shades in that palette. It's like a light purple with a gold shift. I love it when purples have like a gold shift to them. This is Aura from the Aether Rose Quartz palette. This is Sublime from the Ofra Symphony palette. That's my favorite shade in that palette. I love that. It's really, really pretty. This next one is Sultry from the ABH Soft Glam palette. That one is questionable. Like, is that really purple? Is it more mauve? Is it more brown? I don't know. It's a lot of things, but we put it in the purple category. This is Rani from the Billie Beauty Eyes of India palette. This is Drama from ABH Norvina, deep shimmery purple. This is Tempo from the Ofra Symphony palette. This one is very sheer. It looks a lot deeper in the pan, but it almost looks more pink on my swatch here. And on the back of my hand, I've got some deep purples. This is Third Eye from the Urban Decay Stone Vibes palette. It's like a satiny plum. This is Rowdy from ABH Subculture. Very, very deep, almost black. This is Black Cherry from the e.l.f. New Classics palette, and shade number 4 in the e.l.f. Rosewater Quad. Those are really similar. And this last one here is Friendly from the Balm Nude Dude palette. So those are all of my purple shadows, ranging from pastel to almost black. Another one of my favorite categories is peach. I love peach eyeshadows. I'm seeing that there's a lot of overlap here. So this first one here is ColourPop Wait For It. That is one of their magnetic singles. This one next to it is Retro from Urban Decay Naked Reloaded. Honestly, Urban Decay Naked Reloaded is kind of also on my little unofficial chopping block for eyeshadow palettes. Once again, I just feel like within that palette there are a lot of duplicate shades in the rest of my collection, that one included, and Retro is one of my favorites in that palette, but it's not like I need more than one of that kind of shade in my collection, especially if I already have it in a single. This really light one here is Antidote from Urban Decay Stone Vibes. I love that shade. Love a very pale peach like that for just a transition shade or a blending shade. This next one is a lot more orangey. This is Roxy from ABH Subculture. And these two are from ColourPop Miss Bliss. So this first group here is all of the more pinky peaches, and then this second group is more yellowy orange peaches. This one is Intuitive from ColourPop Miss Bliss, and this one is Optimist from ColourPop Miss Bliss. I feel like you can see subtle differences between most of these, but I feel like Wait For It, Retro, and Optimist are all very similar. And then these four here are my more yellowy peaches. So this first one is Orange Soda from the ABH Soft Glam palette. This is Palo Santo from the ColourPop Miss Bliss palette. I love that shade. That is so metallic and beautiful. Vibrant Thing from Miss Bliss and Whoa from Miss Bliss. Next, for the category of pink, I also have a lot of these. So these are pinks that were not part of the light shimmery pink category, although some of these are light and shimmery. Then I have some on the back of my hand here as well. So this first one here is Wild Child from the ABH Norvina palette. Love from Norvina. I love that shade. I love Love. Then we have a couple more from the ColourPop Miss Bliss palette. This is Of Quartz, which is a very pale baby pink. Then we have Loves It and Chakra to Me. So I think Of Quartz and Loves It are both mattes with a little bit of glitter to them, but they really show up like mattes on the eyes. And this one is obviously very metallic. This is my one and only hot pink. This is Rave from the Profusion Spectrum palette. This looks a lot more coral, but I felt like it was more pink than the ones that were in my peach category. This is Bloom from the ABH Sultry palette. This is a duochrome. It's got a white base with a pink shift. This is Cube from ABH Sultry. These are two very, very pale matte pinks. These are Kindly and Lovely from the Profusion Mauves palette. This is another duochrome. This is a ColourPop single in the shade Thank You Next. Really pretty, but honestly kind of flaky. This one honestly could have probably gone in either pink or purple. This is almost more of like a berry mauve. This is the shade Aurora from the Shared Planet Polar Bear palette. Then we have Tamara from the Billy Beauty Eyes of India palette. Meditate from Urban Decay Stoned Vibes. Once again, that one is kind of mauve, kind of pink, kind of purple, kind of brown. This one is Persona from the Profusion Mauves palette. So pretty. I love those shimmers in that palette. They're so intense. This is shade number 3 from the e.l.f. Rosewater Quad. Then on the back here we have a few more. This is the shade Charm from the Ofra Symphony palette. In the pan that one looks very like terracotta, but on my skin it's way more pink. This is the shade Beloved from the e.l.f. New Classics palette. This probably could have gone in my light pink shimmer category, but it was just a lot more pink than some of those, so that's why it's here. And then this is a duochrome. It's like a pink-blue duochrome. This is also from that Becca Light Gleam Liquid Shadow duo, and that's the topper side. The shade of that duo is Refract. Unfortunately, as beautiful as this shade is, I don't really use it because I don't like the formula. It's very wet. Takes forever to dry down, and it creases and fades very easily, so it's a bummer because look how pretty that is. And those are my pink shadows. Huge variety there as well. Alright fam, moving on to red. So this ranges from some like cranberry and almost pinkish reds to reddish browns. And it's funny, as many colors as I have classified as red, I don't have any like straight up red, like ketchup red colors, or like, you know, the primary color red. So it's interesting. I don't know if I would use that kind of color that much anyway, so it's probably fine. But anyway, let's start with these. These are my more like berry reds. This first one is Love Letter from ABH Modern Renaissance, and this is Venetian Red from Modern Renaissance. Those are so similar. I've always kind of felt like I wish they would have just left one of those out and replaced it with something else, because they're so similar. You know, they're not identical, but I don't feel like there needs to be both of those in a palette. Then we have the shade Totally from the Profusion Spectrum palette. This one looks very pink here, but I feel like it was more red than my other pinks. Also, it's not quite as deep as it looks in the pan, so I think that's also part of it. Next, we have Monsoon from the Profusion Mauves palette, very deep, like maroon red. Now we have some very reddish browns. This is Mehendi from the Billy Beauty Eyes of India palette. This is Hexed from Urban Decay Stoned Vibes, very similar. And this is Sienna from ABH Soft Glam. That is probably the brownest of all of these reds. These look so brown on here, but I swear they don't look this brown like in the pan when they're not next to other reds. This is Passion from ABH Norvina, which is really kind of burgundy. All three of these are. This next one is Mulberry from ABH Soft Glam, and this one is All Star from ABH Subculture. Those are all slightly different ABH shades, but I feel like they're so similar. Then we have Red Ochre from Modern Renaissance. I love that one. I feel like that one, again, is more red when it's not swatched next to other reds. This is Profusion Ember from the Spectrum palette. Almost orangey here. And this last one is Explode from the Profusion Mauves palette. Those are all of my reds. And last but not least, we have oranges. This is my smallest category, even between colors and neutrals. But this first one here is Bengal from the Billie Beauty Eyes of India palette, a nice matte terracotta sort of shade. This is similar but a little bit more muted than that. This is Realgar from the ABH Modern Renaissance palette. And this last one, I'm not even sure if this is showing up true to color on camera, but this is the shade Beat from the Profusion Spectrum palette. And this one is such a bummer because it goes on so sheer. I really had to build this up, and it's such a pretty bright orange. I mean, this is like a tangerine orange, or like, it kind of looks like Cheeto dust, like it's that bright. But it is kind of hard to use on my eyes because it's always so sheer, and I just have to build it so much to even get it to show up even close to what I want. But that is the only like really bright orange that I have in my collection. So this is by far the smallest category that I have. And so in the future, when I am looking into maybe either single shadows or when I am looking to buy a palette, at least I know that if I buy some new orange shades, they probably won't be duplicated in my collection. I actually just did place an order on the Clarity Cosmetics website. They have some beautiful single shadows, magnetic singles, and I did order one shade from that, which was the shade Hot Cheeto. It's funny that I mentioned Cheeto dust. So that'll be fun to have, but I don't have that one yet. But orange, yeah, we could use some more oranges, I think, in my collection. I really like orange eyeshadow. I feel like it looks very flattering on blue eyes, so I would not mind expanding my orange collection. Okay, this took forever, and we have now reached the end of my eyeshadow collection. I'm just gonna keep talking at you from here for a second, and then I'll close it out, but this was really, really fun. I think this was just a great way for me to take stock of my full eyeshadow collection and really get a sense for what I already have a lot of, where I might have overlap, so I can know, okay, what can I probably declutter and part ways with, and what might I want to expand in the future. But if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. I'll also leave part 1 below. That was where I swatched all my neutral shadows. Sun is coming out really bright right now. But otherwise, I'd love to have you subscribe to my channel if you're not already. I hope to see you again very soon, and hopefully I will talk to you in my next video. Bye.